then I'll share.
That worked.
Welcome, everyone, to the monthly gathering of the Auxiliary Markings Club, our second Tuesday gathering. Tonight we have the wonderful opportunity to hear David Bree, who I have not met in person, but who wrote a wonderful article on the topic he's going to be presenting on in the British North American Philatelic Study Journal, BNAPS, and I found it really fascinating, and I thought it would be nice if we had a chance to have some Canadian content. So we welcome David. These meetings take place on the second Tuesday of each month, unless for some reason we have somebody who is from Europe or somewhere not in an American time zone. And then we occasionally will move to a Saturday in the afternoon or whatever. But you can pretty much be sure if it's the second Tuesday of the month, we'll be here. And you can always find the link for our program in our e-newsletter. And if you'd like to be on that list, please let me know and I'd be happy to add you to it. The Auxiliary Markings Club has been around for a good long bit of time. It was founded by John Hotchner and Tony Warwickevich and Doug Quine. And we do have a very lovely website, postal-markings.org, where you can find back volumes of our wonderful newsletter, Auxiliary Markings. Only the last 2 years are behind a paywall, available to members, but everything else is available. We like to think that we have the best deal in philately for what you get. We like to say if you're not a member of the Auxiliary Markings Club, why not? Digital memberships are $15 for the year. And in December, if you actually decide to renew before the end of the year, you get a discount on that as well. So it's really a real bargain. We're not a huge club. We have about 125 members, but we like to think that we punch way above our weight. Two of the things that we have are a YouTube channel, which can be found by searching out Auxiliary Markings Club on YouTube. It has all of our past presentations. And we also have a Facebook page, which can also be found by searching out Auxiliary Markings Club. That Facebook page is updated almost every day with a new and an interesting auxiliary marking or label. So there's a lot to learn there as well. We're excited that coming this fall, we're going to have our first virtual exhibition. And I hope you're all working on an exhibit to help support the first ever AMC virtual competitive stamp exhibition. Date will be announced in June. This will be a one-frame exhibition designed for never before shown exhibits. It's an amazing opportunity to get feedback from accredited Ken J judges and to have a chance to show your fellow AMC members your work. Perhaps you've never thought about exhibiting before. Why not enter an exhibit in the supportive, non-threatening, friendly environment? And if you'd like help developing an exhibit, you don't know how to do it, please get in touch and we'd be really more than happy to help you with that. And the key point here is your exhibit doesn't necessarily have to be entirely about labels or markings, but they should play an important role in telling your story. So keep your eyes out for that. We should have a date for you for the next meeting, and hopefully you'll give some thought to entering. So our presenter tonight is David Bree. David grew up in Almonte, Ontario. As early as elementary school, he developed an interest in stamp collecting, building on his mother's Girl Scout collection, or school girl collection. His aunt soon pitched in and started bringing him envelopes from the Ottawa Legion main office. And while the stamps on these were usually of little note, David started noticing the wide geographic range of the postmarks. being a cartophile. Even then, he started keeping the envelopes for their postmarks and looking up on maps the locations of the town. Sounds to me like you're in the right company here, David. After high school, cover collecting slowed down but never stopped as he pursued a formal education in the field of geology, receiving a Bachelor of Science from Waterloo University in 1983 and a Master of Science from Queen's in 1990. While geology and philately were passions, his greatest passion is for the natural world, and from 1988 to 2006, he worked as a seasonal naturalist in the provincial park system in a number of central Ontario parks. From 2006, he was the Chief Park Naturalist at Presqu'ile Provincial Park, retiring in 2021. For the last 37 years, he's been a resident of Prince Edward County, and it is this county that he focuses most of his postal history studies on, though anything from Ontario will pique his interest, and the odd other cover as well. So, David, I'm going to stop sharing and thank you for being here with us today. And we're really looking forward to your presentation.
I would just like, sorry, David, I'd like to mention that David has been published in PHSC Journal
Yes.
in the March 25 issue. And of course, the topic was Missent To.
Of course.
A lighthearted look at male gone astray.
I'm incorrect. I apologize. Yes, it was in the Postal History Studies Journal, not the Canadian Postal History Society Journal, and not in BNAPS. So, not that BNAPS wouldn't be worthy of such an article. So, thanks for correcting that, Tom.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Greg. I apologize for my opening slide. This is the only meme I could find that had anything to do with missent mail. So we'll start here, something a little more appropriate. When Greg first asked me to present a talk on my research, I was a little taken aback. Research? That's a little weighty for what I thought I was doing. I just like to collect postmarks from towns, and missent mail gives you 2 postmarks for the price of 1 sometimes. So I kind of picked up a few that way, and then I started thinking, well, why is it missent? What happened? And so I did a little detective work, and some of the ones you can figure out and some you can't. And then when I wrote that article, I thought, well, maybe I better look at some of the directives and looked up some directives. So research might be a little weighty, but hopefully this talk will be interesting enough. And what I'd like to propose doing is start off with the directives and the way that missent mail was supposed to be handled. Look at some of the examples of the markings and the hammer markings and the freestyle markings found in pretty Canadian missent mail and mostly Ontario. And finish off with my detective work that I hope you all participate in trying to figure out why mail goes wrong, goes astray. So, oh yes, and I just want to say some of these scans are mine and some come off the internet. And I also want to give a shout out to Eric Manchi's fantastic Ontario Post Office Atlas, where I've used some of the maps out of this atlas during this presentation. So we start off with the earliest postal directive that I could find comes out of Boggs's Postal History of Canada book. And he says, at least as early as 1830, postmasters were given written instructions on how to deal with letters going to the wrong office. So he quotes a letter here sent to the Huntington Lower Canada postmaster in 1830. When letters arrive at your office missent by accident, as sometimes happens, you will mark them Missent To, and then here insert the name of your office, and then you will put them in the mail to so they can be sent to where they were supposed to go. So pretty straightforward. And this is 1830. The earliest I've seen is 1829. This is Missent to Drummondville, and you can see it's written out in its entirety, and the office mark is used. Both are used in this case. Now, if we look at the next directive that I can find was in the Journals of the Legislative Assembly of the Province of Canada. So that would have been Upper and Lower Canada combined. And if you find the regulations and instructions for the government of the Post Office Department, and you go to subsection 128, you'll find basically the same information. Oh, sorry. I was just trying to get rid of the side pictures, but we're fine. Anyway, I can't. So it says here, when a letter is received that was supposed to go to somewhere else, the postmaster will write the words "Missent To." And here I emphasize three things. It's supposed to be in red ink. It's supposed to be in the front of the letter. And then he's supposed to affix his official stamp immediately after. I emphasize those three things because it's just about impossible to actually find all three of those things actually working in this era. In particular, red ink. For example, here we have Missent to Marshville, an excellent cover, the same era as those legislations, those directives, and Marshville is written out in full. There's no office hammer here. And as I said, it's almost impossible to find Missent To written out in red ink. As a matter of fact, I've never seen it written out in red ink. Though perhaps, in this case, maybe it was red and it's just faded. I don't know. The stamp pad's reds obviously don't fade because it's still there. But this is the closest to what I could get to the letter actually, a piece of mail actually following the directives. Missent To Newark in red. Maybe the missent was in red. Maybe it wasn't. And Bob Stock sent me this image. This is the only all red example I've ever seen. Missent To Tamworth, 1857. And here it's pretty clear that Missent To is not written, but it's actually a hammer. So if we go back to Boggs, and he talks about his hammers a little bit. He says hand stamps that said missent, or more commonly Missent To, were being sent out to some of the larger offices by 1859. And just looking from the examples I've seen, it's even earlier. I'm showing one there to Quebec in 1856, not in red. And the earliest I've seen is 1852. This missent hammer in this style. But it took a while for these hammers to get rolled out, obviously, because here's one from Guelph, which I consider a medium-sized town at least, 1862, and still was just writing out Missent To. And I want to just point out something. People might be a little more familiar with this than I am. But it seems that when you write a double S in this era, you take the first S and you stretch it out so it looks like an F or something. And I've noticed this a lot on missent, written missents. I'd like to see more writing from this era to see if it's used on all words. But sometimes it doesn't look like it's missent, but this is what a double S looks like. Anyway, so back to this Quebec cover. Missent To, 1856, a nice hammer, not in red and not on the front of the card. So you do find some on the back. They're supposed to be on the front. This one's on the back. 5 years later, you can see Quebec actually got it right. They stuck it on the front. And you'll also notice that that Missent To hammer is obviously different. So the larger cities were getting these hammers and getting more than one. And this is the type of hammer that was being produced and sent out to the various post offices. And while it took a while, by the late 1800s, early 1900s, even very small offices seem to have had a hammer like this that sent Missent To. Now, Boggs also mentioned some hammers just said missent. So here's a missent hammer. But this comes from the States. This is from the Smithsonian Web webpage, and they actually have a little write-up on how this hammer was made, if you're interested in that. But Missent is very, very rare in Canada, from my limited experience. It is seemed to be the main hammer in the States. And I was actually quite excited when I saw this cover. Canadian cover with Missent only. But then I realized, oh, of course, it's Missent in New York City, so that Missent was affixed in the States. As a matter of fact, the only Missent I have seen that is possibly a Canadian cover is this Missent to Manila, Ontario. It was supposed to go to Manila, New York. It went to Manila, Ontario. The postmasters put a big red mark under New York, so you know it's right where it was supposed to go. However, I wonder if this Missent was actually affixed in the States. It's like I say, it's quite unusual for Canada. It's in small font. It's not large or upper. It's small case, not uppercase. And maybe the American postmaster wanted to make sure that it wasn't the American post office that messed up. It was the Canadian one, and added his own Missent. So this is the Missent style hammer that I consider the classic, widely used hammer throughout the country for over 100 years. I would say 80% of my Missent collection has this style of hammer. Uppercase Missent To. And if you want to get into minutia and you want to classify these, you could do so using the markings in between the two words. So here we have a dash between the two words. Here's a dot between in the center, both in the center. A dash at the bottom, a dot at the bottom. And this is a slash at the bottom, and this might be a one-off. I've only ever seen this on a cover to Toronto. And then there's those that have no marking at all. So this is the classic marking used for Missent mail in Canada. And as I said, I've seen it in 1852, and this is the latest I've seen it in 1956. And there might well be other ones around there, and certainly if anybody ever sees one later than this, I'd be more than happy to hear about it. There is a secondary hammer that some post offices seem to get. It's quite an elaborate. It's as you can see, it's a pointed finger with Missent To inside it. And then it has this rather redundant message. It says, please return cover to postmaster for inquiry. And I can't figure what that's about. If you're Mr. George Taylor in Paris Station and you get this envelope, your letter arrives, and you see this on the front, what are you supposed to do? Take it back to the postmaster so that he can what? Apologize? I don't know why he has to go and get more inquiries about what went wrong with his letter. But this is not very common. I've seen it on about 5 different offices, 6 different offices. And because it's so large, it almost always is poorly, it's usually a poor stamp. And this is the kind of thing you usually see. So Huntsville had one as well. And here's actually what the hammer looks like. A big, quite a big head on it, quite a bulky thing, and difficult to use, I would think. There were a few one-offs, or what I think are one-offs. Here's a Missent with the dash between the miss and the cent, and nothing between the two words. This is a beautiful one-off, unique hammer, probably made by the postmaster himself or somebody he knew. Missent to Norwich, Ontario. And again, Bob Stock sent me this image. So this is I don't think you obviously wouldn't find this anywhere else. This is just a one-off here from Norwich. Here's another one that's city, only found in one city. And it doesn't say Missent To, but that's clearly what's happening is, and here we can blame the addressee. They put Canada on the end of an obvious address supposed to go to England. And obviously it happened enough that London, Ontario got a hammer made up in the early 1900s that says basically try England, please. So I find that quite amusing, actually. Another one-off or sort of town-specific that seems to be more, it might have been a postal or made by the official post office, because it's certainly in the same style at least. Missent to CH Town, which is no doubt Charlottetown, PEI. And if you look down below, you can see why it was accidentally sent to PEI, because it was supposed to go to Prince Edward County, where I'm speaking to you from. And coming from England, I guess they just took it off the boat at the first Prince Edward it got to, Prince Edward Island. But that's sort of my transition into why does mail go astray? Well, I sort of categorized it in a number of different ways. Poor penmanship. In the age of cursive writing, and even people that are used to reading cursive writing, it's very difficult to read some of these addresses. And I don't know, this is where I sort of was asking people if they wanted to jump in and see if they can read these towns. I don't know how that would work, but if anybody feels they want to take their mute out and just say what town this is, please do so.
Milton?
Otherwise, I'll just... Sorry?
Milton,
Ontario.
Milton. I think
Milton.
Yeah, I think it says Milton too. I can see where the front might have been a W. And if you look carefully, that T has been added afterwards. That was probably added by the postmaster in Wilson, because that's where it ended up. So I don't know. It's not the worst penmanship, but it apparently wasn't good enough. And if you delve a little bit more into this, you see it comes from St. Thomas. So if you look up on the map, St. Thomas to Wilson is 50 kilometers, and St. Thomas to Milton is 150 kilometers. And yeah, I think you find this a lot, that if a postmaster had a little problem reading something, by default, he just thinks it's going to someplace that he's more familiar with, a closer town, which he would be more familiar with. Here's another one. Anybody read that one? A little harder. Is that a B or a P at the front?
Looks like a P to me.
It does look like a P to me.
I got a P.
Yeah.
It's the middle part I'm having trouble with.
Yeah, it looks like Punisson to me. No such town. It's not Powassan either, which is where it ended up. It was Bunnison. It was a B. It's not a P.
Oh.
You'll also notice that there is no mark on here that actually says Missent To. And you do get that. This one has the postmaster said not Powassan, which is as close as you're getting to Missent To, I guess. But sometimes you don't get any Missent hammer marks, written marks at all, and you just kind of guess by the postmarks that, oh, it went to a strange place first. Anybody read that one?
Gowrie.
Gowrie. Yeah, I quite agree with you. That looks like Gowrie. The postmaster did not agree. He sent it to Gorey, but it did make it to Gowrie eventually. And this one, I'd really like to know what this one says.
Armon?
Armin? That's a good one. I don't know if I've tried Armin. I thought it was saying Amon.
Oh,
No such post office. Or even
didn't think so.
Asman or a CR. Or would you say Orman?
Armin or Anman?
Armin. I'm going to look up Armin. I don't think I've looked up that one.
Oh,
Maybe it's supposed to be. I don't know what it is. It went to Osman. I'm going to write down Armin.
close enough.
Yeah. I don't know where there's no receiving mark, so I don't know where it ended up. I'm going to have to look up and see if Armin's a post office in Ontario. Anyway, so that's why a lot of mail goes wrong. And then sometimes there's just extra data that people seem to look at before reading to the bottom, and not reading to the bottom seems to happen a lot actually. But in this case, this is a little different. Miss Mabel here, her address has something starting with a K in exclamation marks, and it seems to me it's saying near Norfolk.
Would be new.
Yeah, it actually is new. I found out later because it went to Kenora, and it was supposed to go to Tasmania.
That's
And-
close.
Yeah, that was real close. And Kenora is probably the name of the house. A lot of British rural houses have names. My father-in-law grew up in Rowantree, and that same habit or custom probably went to Tasmania. But adding it to the address in Canada just seemed to confuse the postmaster. And this is one of my favorite covers of all time. It went to Lurie, and it was supposed to go to Sarnia, but it was supposed to go to the livery in Sarnia. And I like this cover because the livery or the horse stable is a business that hasn't been around for 70 years, probably 80, 90 years. So this really indicates a different business model from what we have today, an extinct business. And the postmaster is obviously a very precise and perhaps even anal individual. He's put two very ruler straight black lines under Sarnia, and it looks like he's added some exclamation marks on Sarnia and also under Missent To. So I think this, and it's a very attractive looking cover. So I think that's kind of cool that it's supposed to go to the livery. Towns of the same name. Nobody should be surprised about this one. There are similar town names in different jurisdictions. So this one was supposed to go to Clinton, Massachusetts, and it went to Clinton, Ontario. And you can see a couple of things here. One is it's the pointing finger one with the strange mess. But on top, there's another pointing finger, and it's different. The cuffs are different. It's obviously a different hammer, and there's no words associated with it. And I don't know if this is another Missent To hammer that was available to some post offices. I've never seen it I've never seen the pointed finger by itself except here. And it's a pretty messy cover, so it's kind of hard to tell. And again, maybe it was added in the States, though it is Missent To and not Missent. Norwich, Ontario Norwood, Ontario instead of Norwood, Ohio. And all Canadian one, the Lieutenant Colonel didn't get his military gazette quite as early as he would have liked because whoever sent it from Montreal just put Woodstock, and not too surprisingly to me, it went to Woodstock, Ontario, where the postmaster put a nice big blue NB for New Brunswick to send it on its way to New Brunswick. And this one's kind of fun. It was supposed to go to Lafayette, Indiana, and it went to Indiana, Upper Canada. And you can't really blame the post office for that because if you'll notice the the ink, the dark black ink in the center of Indiana hammer is the same as the United States written word. So I don't think the original addresser put United States on it. So it's not too surprised that it ended up in Indiana, Upper Canada. And postmaster there is put United States on. And he also has the longest missent message I've seen on any cover. Missent to Indiana, Canada West on the 11th of November, 1844. He tells you the whole story right there. And then there's also just handling error. Here we have a letter sent from Kingston going to Toronto, and it has a missent to Belleville on it. So when you're sending your letter from Kingston to Toronto, you're probably putting it on the Grand Trunk Railroad in 1871. Kingston's there, Toronto's there, and for some reason it got off the train in Belleville a third of the way along. Probably just got in the wrong bag and got thrown out of the train, and it arrived in Toronto the next day, so there wasn't a great loss of time there. And here's one from my neck of the woods on Prince Edward County. This cover is coming from Carrar, Saskatchewan, and it was supposed to go to Cherry Valley, but it ended up in Bloomfield. And Bloomfield and Cherry Valley are two small offices, small towns outside of Picton. And the mail for both those towns would have gone through Picton. And I can see in Picton, it just got thrown in the wrong bag and probably thrown on the horse cart that was doing the mail in 1909 and went to the wrong town. Now, when you think about it, that letter went 2,856 kilometers all the way across the country, and it only missed by 13 kilometers. So that's only an error of 0.4%, which I think is not bad in some ways. So we've seen some of the reasons why mail goes astray, and a lot of it, I think, can be placed on the blame of the postal worker. And looking at some more up-to-date postal regulations, even though the postal guide started in 1863, it doesn't seem to have a section for missent mail. And I didn't check every year because I don't have access to every year, but the earliest I can find is 1896. But they must have been getting letters to telling them how to handle missent mail, because it is more or less handled the same throughout. But anyway, because it seems like the postmasters are to blame for some of this missent mail, and it doesn't really say that here, but they use all these words like excise all possible care, careful scanning of addresses, careful performance of this duty. They seem to be pushing the fact that you guys got to look at the letters a little better. The only other real big change here is they got rid of the red writing, which was good because nobody used it anyway. And everything else is basically the same. Put the Missent To on the front, use your hammer, and send it on its way. And it's also rather, if you look at number 17 there, it's kind of nice to know that you're not supposed to rent post office boxes to persons giving fictitious names. So some of the mail is going astray is due to the postal worker, but some it has to be put on the addressee. And we've seen that already. But here's a couple of other sender errors. This one was, if you look on the back of this envelope, we can see that Rosie Buckholtz was sending a letter to her friend. And Rosie lives in Delhi. And when she wrote out her friend's address, she wrote Tillsonburg, but then she wrote Delhi, Ontario on the bottom. And that's probably just because she's so used to writing out her own address, it just came out Delhi, Ontario. And I think the postmaster here was a little cruel. I mean, if it's mailed in Delhi, is it really missent to Delhi? Anyway, the postmaster there scratched out Delhi and slapped 2 Missent To's on this, showing their frustration. And you will notice this was obviously the same hammer used twice in a row. You notice one has a dot and one doesn't have a dot. So you can see when we go back to that classification we were talking about, some of the hammers may have morphed through time, particularly the dots. I can see the dots disappearing. And this one's a little bit of a self-indulgent story. Miss Ethel Bedell lives in what looks like Leoville, Ontario. And it went sent to Paisley. How does it end up in Paisley? Doesn't sound anything like Leovet or Leoville. But if you look at the map and you look at Paisley, you'll see that there's a Lovett just down the road. So you can see where it might have gone in that direction, but obviously the Paisley postmaster was on the ball because it never made it to Lovett. He just realized it was wrong right off the bat. And the thing that really gets me is he said try Lovett with 2 T's, but he also said Murray Canal. And here's the Murray Canal. It goes from the Bay of Quinte to Presqu'ile Bay, and Lovett's at one end. And for 16 years when I worked at Presqu'ile Point, I drove through Lovett. But it doesn't say Lovett. It says Murray Canal. And Murray Canal has never had a post office, but Lovett has. And I was really impressed that a postmaster in Paisley in 1909 had heard of the Murray Canal for starters, because it's not a post office, and sent this cover on its way, and it got to Lovett with 2 T's instead of 1 T. And so you realize that the address Leovet is really just an L with a little curly Q on it, and it's really addressed correctly. So we're into the modern era. Missent To hammers really drop off after 1920. You just don't see too many of them, and part of that is addresses were started to be typed. They started to be printed. The number of offices shrunk immensely with the advent of rural mail delivery. Ontario probably lost 75% of their offices between 1910 and 1920. So a lot less offices to get mixed up with. So you don't see too much missent mail in the modern era, at least I haven't. But you do see a few unique hammers having been made specifically for a town. So here's a Missent to Toronto, and if you look at the address where it came from, it was North Vancouver, and it was supposed to go to Vancouver. And I don't know why it ended up in Toronto, but it did. There's a Missent to Edmonton, and there's a very attractive pointed finger Missent to New Brunswick. And then there's Missent Fourvoy sur Montreal, excuse my terrible French. An obvious bilingual hammer. And this started me thinking, I don't look at much stuff from Quebec at all. And I realized the only other one I've really seen is this Missent to Drummondville. And maybe it wasn't to Drummond, maybe it was Missent à Drummondville. So sort of a bilingual marking. But it got me thinking, in Quebec, did they get pure French Missent hammers? Or were they supposed to write Missent? Or did they just get English hammers? That's a question I wouldn't mind finding out if anybody ever sees or knows of whether they used French foyer sur hammers in the province. I'd be interested in knowing. I did find a post office translation publication. And Missent there is for voyeur. It's got the R on the end instead of foyer, sur. But I've never seen any other Missents from Quebec, so I just don't know if they're in French or not. So I think we've sort of come full circle now, though. Back in 1829, if a letter was missent, it was written out, missent to Drummondville. And now, well, still quite a while ago, but in the 50s, it's missent to North Bend, written out. We have a Missent To here in the 90s, which, Missent To and the hammer, the station hammer, which happens to be a puccoon, but or a square, but it looks awfully similar to this Missent to Arthur sent 100 years earlier. So we've sort of seen the evolution of Missent markings on covers going from all written out to the classic Missent To hammer, a few of the pointed finger hammer, a few specific town hammers, and even still being used, in this case, not Missent To, but not for in the modern era. And I want to just finish off by showing this most bizarre Missent letter ever. It was going from England to Illinois, and you see in the upper left-hand corner a Benny's Corners hammer strike. Benny's Corners is in northeastern Lanark County. There it is, right there. You can see it's almost at the end of the roads. There's no roads north of it. In the 50 years it was open, it closed and opened and closed and opened 4 times. So it's really an insignificant post office. It is between England and Illinois, but there's no way other than if the cover was in somebody's pocket and it just ended up there, would you expect a cover going from England to Illinois ending up in Benny's Corners? No explanation for why. Benny's Corners is pretty insignificant, but it does have one famous item here. It is the birthplace of James Naismith, inventor of basketball. James Naismith went to Almonte, which is my hometown. We both went to the same high school. And this sort of brings me back to full circle to the place where I started collecting covers, which has led to this talk today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. That's really fascinating stuff. I'm amazed at the amount. If you don't mind taking your screen down, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sure, no problem at all. I'm amazed at the diversity of the covers that are, not the covers, the markings that you find. So I'm assuming that at least in Canada, that the post office is responsible for their own production of these, or for ordering them from catalogs.
Yes, and that something an area of research would be to look for the orders and see, did every little post office get one? A lot did, but I really don't know, and whether one hammer lasted them 100 years or not, probably did.
I have one of the straight line cancels that's or hammers that says Missent to Banner, Ontario.
Banner. Oh,
Banner.
cool.
And Banner is a tiny little community. So
Yeah.
the only thing I can think of is, I'm sure that the Canada Post was not shipping that to the good
No.
people of Banner, but that somebody bought it in the catalog,
Yeah, or the postmaster made it, had somebody to make it for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug,
Go
cool.
ahead.
That was a wonderful talk. I've been fascinated by these markings for years, but I honestly have
Thank
never
you.
seen the use of a postmark to indicate the city before. In the United States, it's always either a hand stamp, as you said, with the city already there, which is pretty easy to do given the fact that by definition you're in that location. It's not that there's any customization involved.
Yeah.
People often get rubber stamps made locally, but it was beautiful to see the Canadian way. Secondly, regarding your FS for double S, that is a standard thing in English in the 17th and early 18th century. Double S was normally written, it looks like FS, but if you look at it in print, you'll notice the F is not crossed. So it's an F without a cross on it, even in typeset material. The
Yeah,
double S.
but stretched out.
Yes. So
Yes.
imagine the letter F, but not crossed.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, thank you for that. I was kind of guessing there was some convention.
yes, that is common. And when you read old government documents and things, people get confused by them. Here, how did you get the canceled hammer with the pointing finger for Missent? How did you get the image of that hammer?
I must. I just found it on the web and I didn't remember where I got it from. I have no reference for that, unfortunately. I think it might have been for sale in an auction catalog.
Wow, it's a beauty.
Yeah.
All the pointing fingers I'm aware of in the United States say return to sender or return to writer, and then occasionally there's further details, but I've never seen one for Missent before.
No, I was wondering because there's that Missent by itself, and I was wondering if that was an American hammer, but you've never seen that, just a finger pointing Missent to.
Not a finger pointing one,
Yeah.
no.
No.
And then your comment about the bilingual in the French part of speaking part of Canada, it's sort of ironic because the international language of the Universal Postal Union is French. So letters from Germany to England will be marked in French if there's a problem because all the post offices are supposed to learn how to read French. But it's kind of ironic in a country that's got an area
Yeah.
speaking French that you haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, that's why we have two solitudes in this country. It's a famous saying for Canada. But I wondered if they just, particularly in the early days, the arrogance of the post office just said the French ones had to use English. I don't know. I haven't seen enough.
Certainly, if it were international mail, it ought to get French.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyhow, those are my notes. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for
Great
making
talk.
those. That's very interesting.
Anybody else with a question?
Or comments or
I would just like to say, David, you should offer to do this talk for the RPSC because this would be, I think people would find it really fascinating. When I write to thank you, which I will, I'll send you the name of the man who organizes the talks because I think this is something that people would really find fascinating. So I'll
yeah,
send it along.
it's that's the beauty of digital, eh? Once it's there, it's there.
That's right.
That's where most of the work is. But if anybody ever sees one in red, written in red, let me know. Because I don't know, did the ink fade? Because was red not a stable ink color? Don't know.
I don't know.
It is funny about the must be written in red because when you go to hand stamps, I can see that there are often hand stamps that are red
Yes.
or magenta.
And in Canada, one was indicating that the postage hadn't been paid yet in the postage. Yes, and they seem stable.
Right.
Right.
The
But
color.
you didn't have any rubber stamps in red. And in terms of the handwriting, I don't think red ink's something that's that common to have around unless you're a proofreader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously had red ink pads for the
Right.
stamps. But yeah, the ink I don't know why they said that. And like I said, it's only in that one regulation and nobody seemed to follow it. So
Wow.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, I just would like to say thank you so much for what has turned out to be a really first-rate and very enjoyable presentation.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
for sure. And I would like to just let you know what our next presentation will be as soon as I get there. Sorry. And that will be on June the 9th, a month from tonight, when David Handelman will present on the RR and AR markings that appear on US mail. And I've seen him do a variation on this talk, and he's expanding it a bit for us, and it's really fascinating stuff. So perhaps a little bit closer to home for our membership as a general rule, a lot of which are in the US. And so something I hope people will be interested to see. And in the meantime, thank you so much. And thank you again, David, for being with us tonight, and for everybody coming out. And whether you're watching in person or whether you're watching it down the road, we hope you have a lovely day or a lovely night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Greg.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, come on. You gotta get up. Move. Okay, you gotta get up. I can't get off this.